Hi, my name is Jordan, and typically I'm a fashion and pop culture channel, both on my YouTube channel and on my TikTok. Today, I want to do the effort to do a very important deep dive, I believe, into Shia Labeouf, because as the title reads, Shia Labeouf's rebrand and lack of remorse is extremely problematic, and it could be a huge problem. I think that this is something that's not being explored as thoroughly as it should be right now because of his rebrand, and seeing the videos that I've recently seen where he's talking about Mia Goth and his experiences and the lack of accountability and the fact that he's been doing this 4 years is so widely problematic. I mean, he is effectively, in my opinion, a walking loose cannon who is not just abusive to the people in his life, which is horrendous to say, but abusive to others for no reason. He has a long and lengthy history of this, and just because he gives a few good interviews does not mean this should be overlooked. So I want to do a deep dive today, and I hope that you join me. So if you're anything like me, I'm a millennial. I grew up with Even Stevens, which debuted in 2000 and ran from 2000 to 2003. It was a hit show on the Disney Channel network, and this was at a very tumultuous time of Disney Channel and Disney Channel Kids. This was like one of the OGs, or he was one of the OGs of YouTube, so think of Raven Simone, Vanessa Hudgens, Zac Efron, Hilary Duff. He's one of the OGs of like Disney Channel, and I feel like really coming into that kind of like will they, won't they go down this crazy spiral as a Disney kid. Also growing up during a tumultuous time of like paparazzis and things like that, so it just seemed very chaotic. And for a young Shia at the ages of like 9 and 11 already getting in trouble for theft at an early age, this lifestyle might have been very problematic. And I really feel like, by the lifestyle I mean being famous, and I really feel like whoever was on his team could see this from a mile away, because his career has been so carefully crafted with such tenderness and care that it leads me to believe someone knew how much of a degenerate, in my opinion, Shia could be. So Shia has this thing where, again, at 9 or 11, he's already kind of had these like slight run-ins with what seems to be the law, but that's overlooked as he goes into, again, 2000 to 2003, and he's on Even Stevens as Louis Stevens. He also has the movie Holes come out, and around this time, he's about 17 years old because he was born in 1986. So imagine creating this hype and buzz around you during a very toxic pop culture time. Okay, not the best. We continue forward. So in 2004, he's in iRobot, and he's opposite of Will Smith. This is important because Will Smith at the time is a very beloved actor. I'm not here to talk about it right now, but he's a very beloved actor, especially in the sci-fi genre. And for Shia, he's playing a character who's slightly adjacent from both of his previous characters, where he's this kind of goofball who wants to do right by the person he looks up to, who's Will Smith's character. I remember him trying to learn how to curse in the first couple of scenes that he was in, and it's just really funny, and he's the comedic relief. And there's also something to note that's always been considered good at comedy, because apparently he was at a very early age doing comedy shows, like I think at 11, and a lot of people were like, he's really mature, but like this also isn't necessarily a place for a kid to be. So keep that in mind as we move forward too. Although he has a really great rave reviews in 2004, he has his first public incident in 2005 when he has an altercation with his next door neighbor where he brandishes a knife. He is arrested for assault with a deadly weapon. He is probably I think like 18, 19 at this point. What the fuck, Shia? So apparently the reason he had brandished the knife was because he hits the back of the neighbor's car, and then as the neighbor gets out to be like, bro, what the fuck, after he's been following him, Shia goes in his house, comes out with a knife, and is like brandishing it, and also stabs the car. What is going on? Nobody knows. I don't understand how that didn't make more of a headline at the time, because again, he was already extremely popular as a rising star and a beloved Disney Channel star, and during a time where like toxic publicity was everything. How did this go under the radar? But I digress. So that was in 2005. After 2005, we see him in Surf's Up and Disturbia. Both of these movies are great for his career because Surf's Up, it's a children's movie. I remember those commercials being literally everywhere. And with that movie, you get to have the paycheck and association of being in a kid's movie without having to actually be seen as a child or child adjacent. Again, really great for his career. And this is happening in 2007. So I believe at this time he's like 21. He also has Disturbia, where he's playing a high school age student who's also trying to do the right thing, even though he gets in trouble, that whole 9 yards. I like the movie as well too, and at this point, I have myself become a Shia fan. Then comes Transformers. This was in 2007, and Transformers also comes out, and it is a blockbuster hit. Everybody and they mama loves Transformers. Michael Bay, explosions, cars, Megan Fox, Shia, it's just perfect. It's everywhere, everyone's loving it. It's a fun time at the movie theaters at this point. Also in 2007, Shia has an incident in a Walgreens where he refuses to leave, so they charge him with criminally trespassing. I would normally leave this out, but I feel like this helps to support this idea that Shia does not care. He's very disrespectful towards everyone around him, and it kind of leads you to believe that he thinks he is so far above it all, and he thinks he's truly right, even when he's in the wrong. And it's something as simple as just leaving when you're asked, but he refuses to do even that. What's going to come to follow is actually going to be Shia having an issue in 2008, which is his first drunk drive, or his only drunk driving incident, but his first drunken incident. So in 2008, it's also rumored that he's leaving the franchise because of his drunk driving accident. So from what it seems like, the different sources that I've seen, he gets into a drunk driving accident because a car gets hit. It doesn't say who, but someone runs the red light and his car flips. This is giving angels are watching over me, because baby, his truck flipped. Okay, I think it flipped once or twice as it was reported, and all he came out with was a injured hand. I believe it didn't even say his hand was crushed or broken, just an injured hand. So someone is looking out for him. I don't know who, because in my biased opinion, he's out here doing treacherous things constantly. Maybe he has some ancestors who really were looking out for him, but constantly doing treacherous things, just the energy is off. You know what I mean? But in 2008, he gets into the drunk driving accident. He refuses to do a breathalyzer when at the crime scene. So then they end up taking him to jail on a misdemeanor drunk driving offense. And then his license is suspended a year, which from my understanding is probably one of the heaviest sentences he's given, which is also part of the problem, because having met some people who've had suspended driver's license, they still drive. You need to hit him with a hard fee. We need to hit him with some money. I have a whole issue with drunk driving, so that's my personal bias coming out right there. But I feel like a celebrity who's drunk driving, they need to be kind of made an example of, in my opinion. And I think a hefty fee of 10 or 15 grand would have been more than okay. So he continues through 2008. And he continues to have a good time with his movies, because Transformers, the next one, does really well. That comes out in 2009. And then we see Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps. So this comes out in 2010. This is important because during the production, he meets Carey Mulligan. So he and Carey Mulligan start dating. This is where I will say very specifically, it's alleged that there was toxic behavior. So this isn't exactly abusive, but this is not good behavior to be having, point blank. So they start dating in 2009, and when they break up, it's a really interesting thing, because he's going on public record saying they broke up because she wanted to have a family and have kids, whereas he wasn't ready for that, which would be normally respectful and understandable. But the issue is, other accounts don't say that. And it's really only Shia saying, not even her. She doesn't talk about Shia, from my understanding. And I kind of went a couple pages deep, and I do not hear her talk about that relationship at all. It is said that in a different article that there was a situation where she was having a night for her. I believe she was in a cover shoot, or while he was there and he was supposed to be supporting her, he sat and sulked in the corner for a majority of the night. And then finally, when she came over to talk to him, instead of him being supportive and happy for her, he had become irate. And he was yelling and belittling and just acting a fool at her event. Other people saw. And so when he became embarrassed, he shrinked away, leaving her to feel like she had to brush off the conversation and continue about her business. I don't want to know what that was about necessarily, in the sense of, I don't want to know how comfortable he is doing that to her, especially at her own event where you would think people would be looking at her or for her. It just seems like this is a behavior that had happened before based off of that interaction. There's only 2 or 3 other articles I can find specifically talking about their relationship, but it does seem like it was a very toxic one. Again, I'm not going to say it was abusive because it seems toxic and there is a difference, but I do think it needs to be duly noted. So after 2009, they break up and he starts dating somebody else. From 2010 to 2012, he starts dating Carolyn Foe. Also, it needs to be noted that his relationship with Carolyn was abusive, and it's noted that it's abusive by Carolyn. Again, this is a relationship between 2010 to 2012. Reminder, in 2009, he was dating Carey Mulligan, again with an explosive behavior. It wasn't said that it was abusive in that situation, but it was explosive, erratic behavior. So in 2010, Carolyn Foe says, quote, that Shia, quote, drunkenly pinned her to a bed and headbutting her, causing her to bleed, end quote. I can't say that that is innately sexual abuse just because it's on a bed, but the fact that he's beating her on a bed, he's headbutting her, that's fucking wild. There's one thing to say, oh, we got into an argument. It's another thing to say, someone headbutted me, and the best I could do is after they got done headbutting me, go check to make sure I'm not bleeding. This is what I'm talking about when I say he's a danger. He is physically abusing the people he's in relationships with. This is terrifying. And during this time as well, he gets into an altercation where he gets punched at a bar. Someone finally said, you know what? And hit him. I'm not one to condone violence necessarily. Don't get it confused. I'm just saying someone who hasn't got their shit rocked and needs to get that shit rocked, got that shit rocked. I don't know what else to say other than that. I also say that he was kind of like in debt for this, humbling, if you will, because he also has allegedly been on sets just making them horrid for other people, from negative conversations about Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford to kind of being trash on the sets of the Transformer franchise. Specifically, talking point that I'm thinking of, even though he's dating Carolyn, he brings up that he slept with Megan Fox, and Megan Fox was married at this time. And it's just like, why would you do that? It's giving, like, I always wanted to sleep with her, but she wouldn't let me, and I'm upset, so I'm gonna throw a fit, and I'm gonna lie on her, because how are you gonna prove it? You know what I mean? And it's either she comes out upset saying that never happened, and people are gonna be like, ooh, it clearly happened, she wouldn't be upset if it did, or she lets it go, and people still kind of assume that she's a slut because Michael Bay. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just sucks. It sucked for Megan, and that's why I do think, she deserves the apology she's getting right now. But that was in 2011. And then also we see him step away from the Transformer franchise. It's reported that there was like some bad blood brewing at the time between Michael Bay and Shia, but both have publicly said that wasn't the case and they've stepped away. But I don't know about that. But I'm going to say what they publicly both said, which is that there was no bad blood. It was just time for him to move on. So we move on from 2010 going into 2013. And this is where we start to see his plagiarism and the fact that he has, I believe it was Manic, that he bit off of Dan Clown's 2007 comic, Justin M. Dominio. I don't think I said that right, so I'm gonna again have everything added right here. When this happens, he's not well received because he's plagiarizing, he's taking bit for bit, and people are very upset with that. So this is also the first time we see him just publicly lying for his art. That's air quotes if you missed it. We see him publicly lying for his art and going to festivals and trying to pass this off as like something he did even though he didn't, and it is very ill received because he's again lying. This is around the time that we get the famous "I'm not famous anymore" bag where he's like, I'm doing performance art. I think it was just a hit to his ego, and it's alleged also with the Carey Mulligan situation that he was having his ego hit there too. So I could see the guy who starts punching air because he's mad doing something stupid like that. He's like, why aren't people respecting that I stole something? Am I not famous because they won't let me steal? So on the set in 2014 of Fury, he's making one of his co-stars Life a Living Hell, as well as just like not showering, which, especially with the context of going through the pandemic, you're not showering? Anyways, also in 2014, he is at a cabaret in New York. I believe it's a show. Cabaret in New York, and he gets belligerent. We're also again getting belligerent Shia Labeouf. Let me read my notes specifically for this because I was like, what the fuck? He gets extremely drunk, refusing to leave the show. Again, this is what we saw back in 2011 with the Walgreens situation where he's like, I'm not leaving. Sorry, 2007. Walgreens. So they're trying to get him to leave. He's yelling, swearing, interrupting the show, and then he eventually goes to spit on people, and specifically officers. People get beat the fuck up for less. Oh my God. People, we'll get back to that. But remember that in 2014, he's spitting on officers. Remember that one, folks, because we're going to have to come back to that. I think another really important part of 2014 that we have to insert in to understand is that 2014, 2015 Shia, he's also becoming a meme. He's the Just Do It character, and I think he's really beloved for it. And then also in 2014, 2015 timeframe, he has Shia, the music video that comes out, and it's like very funny and very tongue-in-cheek, and it's like, it's crazy, he's kooky. So a lot of people are kind of like laughing more with him than recognizing and kind of critiquing him. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? And then you have Sia and Elastic Heart, and I believe at the time, again, I was a Shia fan at the time, but I believe that a lot of people were doing so much to praise him for what he was doing in the music video, and also telling people, like, if you're saying that this is inappropriate, that it's kind of more on you and what your eyes see versus what's actually being displayed, which I can understand as well too. And I was on the bandwagon to say, like, oh, like, it's on you for seeing things not as they are, but as your weird work sense wants to look at it. And I feel like that also helped to bolster him back up in the public eye. This is also during the time of him meeting Mia Goth. He met her actually back, I think it was in 2012, and they started a relationship. And then in 2014, they're still going strong. And then into 2015, he has this situation in Germany with Mia Goth. Mia and Shia get into a huge altercation where, and I quote Shia saying, "I don't want to be aggressive. This kind of shit makes a person abusive. If I had stayed there, I would have killed her." He is saying this in relation to Mia Goth, his girlfriend at the time, in Germany. Saying this in a drunken, angry fight where he is in her face. We now have evidence of him being verbally abusive to the people he's in a relationship with, and being aggressive to other people that are trying to stop this behavior that is happening publicly. I know a lot of Germans know English, but imagine you're in a foreign country and you're watching someone yelling at somebody else in a different language, and you're trying to gauge whether or not they need help. And it's so bad that you're like, you know what? Fuck if I don't know the language. That doesn't look okay. That doesn't look safe. I need to go over there and help that person out. That's what I'm interpreting out of this situation. Do you see how problematic it is? Again, we have this no caring about other people in the situation. We just care about ourselves. And he's going to do what he wants to do. He's already recognizing the abusive behavior and he's deflecting from it. But how are we surprised? I do think it's also worth it to note during like the 2010s and 2015s, the celebrity culture has definitely shifted, and indie darlings, if you will, is also becoming very, very popular. So Mia Goth getting with Shia Labeouf makes, I would argue, a lot of sense at this time. Again, they date from 2012 to 2016 and then they get married. I know that hearing this information that Mia had been verbally abused publicly by him is very confusing as to why she would marry him a year after that. I can't speak for her. I don't want to speak for her. I would want her to speak for herself, and she doesn't have to speak if she doesn't want to. Being in a abusive relationship is very complex, and it just changes the way that you think, you feel, and you view the world as a whole. I've been through a not great relationship, and that's the reason I feel like I can give that empathy for her, because I know if you haven't been through something even remotely similar to this, it's extremely hard to deal with. So I don't want anyone bashing Mia, even though I do understand where some people's mindset comes from. I just know that it's a lot more complex than what we understand it to be as outside people. So through 2015, 16, 17, he's still definitely working. Some of them are smaller names, but smaller name titles, but he's definitely still working. I think it's important when we come to 2017 though. So in 2017, he gets into another drunken brawl. He's had several drunken brawls at this point. He's been drunk and disorderly back in 2014. He was drunk and disorderly in 2015. With Mia Goth. 2014, he was drunk at Cabaret. In 2011, he has a drunken altercation and he again gets hit by somebody. And then in 2008, he gets into a drunk driving accident. So that's like what, 4 or 5 situations where he's been drunk and disorderly. let's not forget, back in 2005, assault with a deadly weapon. These are important. So by the time it comes to 2017, it's not surprising that he has a history of being drunk and belligerent and aggressive. I don't know what else to say. Like, we have the proof is in the pudding. You can Google this. But in 2017, he gets in a fight in Georgia, which I would say, if you know people from Georgia, don't start none, won't be none. Point blank. Anyways, he gets into this fight, and there's this huge thing. He gets arrested. When he gets arrested, mind you, remember, back in 2014, he spit on officers, right? In 2017, he says that he was arrested only because of his skin color, because he's a white man. And I'm gonna say it, I said it before, I say it today, I'll say it tomorrow. It doesn't matter if someone is dating somebody of an opposite race or different race. They can still be racist. We all know that white guy who's dating someone because he fetishizes them. Remember that. Anyways, so he gets arrested. He says, I was only arrested because of the color of my skin, because I'm a white guy. And the cops are kind of like, okay, like, you're drunk, whatever. So then he tells the cops that they're going to hell, and they're like, okay, whatever. Then he singles out the black police officer in the room. And when he singles him out, he's like, hey, you're especially going to hell. One of the white officers is like, hold the fuck up, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you know. And the white officer is like, no, I don't. Let's hear it. He's like, because of his skin color. And the guy was like, no, what? Let me just tell you. I'm going to leave it alone, actually, because my husband's from Georgia and I can't really talk too much. So I'm going to leave it alone. But you know what I want to say. If they're telling you you're in the wrong, you might be in the wrong. Anyways, so the officer's like, that has nothing to do with it. Like, you need to be quiet. You need to settle down. So a little bit later on, Shia apparently had also said to, I believe, the same officer, that the officer's wife likes watching big black dick. Fetishization. He really is acting like black people are really not anything more than the appendages. And it's just interesting. It's just fucking interesting. You know what I mean? So a lot of fetishization and condemning the hell of black people. For what reason? Who fucking knows? I think it's interesting because then later in 2019, he goes on to be in The Tax Collector, which is a movie with predominantly Mexican, Afro-Latina, and African-Americans. He's like the only white guy. Did they not look at his rap sheet beforehand? Olivia Wilde didn't either. So let's call a spade a spade. You know what I'm saying? So as we touch on 2019, we also touch on Honey Boy, which is not like an autobiographical movie or like a biopic or anything. This is him in a story that's supposed to be loosely based off of his life. And in this story, he talks about the abuse he suffered at the hands of his father, which is extremely serious. Being, again, a Disney Channel kid, it's like you see this and you want to know why people go off the rails or why they've been crazy. You see this and you kind of understand. You think, oh, wow, this guy lived such a difficult life as a child. This must be why he's acting the way that he is. Like, this is why he has the alcohol abuse and the aggression, the issues with authority, you know, maybe some of the racism, but we don't know. You kind of think this is why. And as he's giving this apology in 2017 about, like, I feel so ashamed for my actions, recognizing his actions and saying he feels bad, but it's not really like, I take full responsibility. He's not even like, yeah, I punched somebody in the face. And then when the officers arrested me because I was in the wrong, I was like, I'm gonna fetishize you and condemn you to hell. And by the way, this is only happening because I'm white. Like, he says it's white privilege, but that's still deflecting because there's white people who don't do that. It's not like y'all just get privilege and you're like, I don't know how to act. No, we have examples of you knowing how to act. Anyways, but in 2019, he has Honey Boy, and so it feels like this kind of explains some of the behavior. Also, in 2019, he has Peanut Butter Falcon. Why is Peanut Butter Falcon so important to his redemption arc? Because instead of, I think, properly addressing everything that was going on, He uses this movie to smooth things over, especially with the way that some people talked about Peanut Butter Falcon. Zach's character, who's played by an actor also named Zach, is someone who has Down syndrome. And there's like this really big push, I feel like, starting in 2015 to not just see bodies of different sizes, but truly bodies of different shapes and abilities. So seeing people who were amputees or in wheelchairs or had visible differences, whether it's like dwarfism or something like Down syndrome, it was really pushed at the time. And I think we've still have a very healthy push to include more people, like really be truly inclusive. And so seeing this movie, the reason I say that it seems like a good PR tactic is because, number one, Dakota Johnson was in it, and like people think she's hot. Okay, like people were really upset with her and her period drama because they're like, that woman looks like she knows what an iPhone is. I can't trust her with Jane Austen. Okay. The way that a lot of people were receiving Zach and Zach's character was with this infantilization that I feel like a lot of people with Down syndrome or Down syndrome adjacent to those people will understand, where it's like, they're like, oh, look at Shia. He's in a movie with someone who is different. Like, they're doing so good together. It wasn't really talking about the movie as a whole and the acting involved as much as, oh, look at this. Like, he's doing so good, which I think Crutches and Spice has said it really well. Her name's Amani, but it's like inspo porn. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, it's so inspirational. I love it. And it's like, you're not looking at these people like they're people. You're looking at them like characters to kind of give you your inspirational fix, and then you move on because you don't care. That's what it seemed like. And that's what I feel like Shia allowed. And he let it go because it benefits him. Even though it was a good movie, I've heard, it benefits him to have somebody where it looks like he's doing something right by them, and it's not right by them. By the way, there's air quotes again, because I don't want it to seem like, you know, like I'm just like, oh, you're doing the right thing. No, it's not right. Zach earned his position. He got the role. He did great. Stop treating him like he's a child and infantilizing people like that. Enough said. It works really well to Shia's benefit and his PR. So also during 2018, he starts seeing FKA Twigs. Oh, I forgot. So in 2016, Mia Goth and Shia also get married. They live stream it. Again, they're indie darlings. It's a little weird. It's a little kooky, but it's what they do. So they get married and everything seems good. He's still working at the time, like I've mentioned, I think. A lot of smaller names, but still working. So then he goes in and he starts on Honey Boy. While he's on the set of Honey Boy, he meets FKA Twigs. Talala? I believe it's Talala. I'm so sorry if I'm saying it like my accent's just punching through right now. But he meets Talala, FKA Twigs. I'll probably use both of her names, her performer name and her like birth name. They start a relationship in 2019. At some point, he does divorce Mia Goth. And I feel like that also is one of those things I'm like, I just want to know the time frame. I just want to know what was going on. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I just want to know. Because it's weird. During their dating, it's perceived as being good, but it's not good behind closed doors, as we would later come to find out. And then in 2020, they break up. After they break up, the reason I bring this up, in 2019, he also did a movie called The Tax Collector, where I think I mentioned that previously too. He is basically playing a character of what seems like Mexican-American descent. And it's really interesting because people are like, well, what the heck is going on? He's not ever said in the film to be any particular race, but a lot of Mexican people are saying it feels like brown face. And again, like I said, in 2017, getting into that whole racial dispute, I can understand why a lot more people would be upset or frustrated, because if you have a set of mainly Mexican-American, Afro-Latina, and African-American people, and this guy was saying some people going to hell for their skin tone, why the hell are you on set? Can someone answer the question? He was effectively co-opting parts of the culture, and that's where a lot of the issues I saw, particularly, I believe it was in the LA Times. It's like, why is he so involved in this culture? Why did you not let the character just be a white guy who grew up in these areas, but you made him this like relatively racially ambiguous character who was at the end of the day a white guy? So now white people are again gonna think, oh, well, I can put this on and I can take it off, and here's a character that supports it. You see? Also, to prepare for his role, that Talala, FKA Twigs, had said he had practiced shooting at stray dogs. You know who kills animals? Serial killers. So this man has unchecked aggression towards random people, his significant others, and he's shooting stray dogs. What? They break up in 2020, or right before 2020, and then in the beginning of 2020, Mia Goth and Shia are spotted together. After they are spotted together, they also are spotted wearing wedding bands. They get married, lockdown happens, and also during lockdown, FKA Twigs, also known as Talala, brings her charges forth. And I believe that they tried to settle it outside of court, but he wouldn't. Back in 2017 as well, too, when his lawyer was like, oh, hey, he doesn't have a drinking problem. It's just like when he chooses to drink, because, drinking problems only happen if you can't stop drinking. When he chooses to drink, sometimes he gets violent, but, that's really not on him. He's gone to rehab or gone to rehab adjacent or been ordered to rehab at least 3 times in his career. 3 times in his career. It's been ordered or heavily suggested. So that's why it makes even more sense that Talala FK Twigs had requested it publicly. And this is the part that kicks me and it kills me, is that he openly says he has cheated on every single one of his partners. Every single one. At one point back, I think in 2017 or 2018, he does say that he's a serial monogamist. Because again, from 2009, Carey Mulligan, 2010, Carolyn Foe, that's 2010 to 2012, 2012 to 2018 effectively, he's with Mia Goth, divorces Mia Goth in 2018, and in 2019, he starts dating FKA Twigs, breaks up in 2019 at some point, and then gets with Mia Goth again in 2020. Saying he's a serial monogamist. No, you're not. Not if you're cheating. That's not how monogamy works. Call a fucking spade a spade. You cheat on people. You cheat on people and you don't tell people when you have cold sores, herpes. You don't tell people when you have herpes, and that is sexual battery. When you know that you have this and you are still having sex with people unprotected and not telling them. That's a lie. It's a lie of omission. It's still a lie. Why is this man on the streets? Can we ask the questions? And it's disgusting because, this is part of the reason I had to have my notes. Because he does admit to the cheating. He says, I've cheated on every woman I've been with. And he does acknowledge that he doesn't tell his sexual partners about the cold sores. And he acknowledges that that's manipulative. What the fuck? And when people came forward talking about Shia and all the fucked up things he did, he said, and I quote, I owe these women the opportunity to air their statements publicly and accept accountability for those things I have done. As someone in recovery, I have to face almost daily the reminders of things that I did say and do when I was drinking. You knowingly infected people with STDs. You laid your hands on them. You hurt them. You bloodied them. You battered them. FKA Twigs had talked about how she was in the car with him and he had taken off his seatbelt while speeding and said, if you don't confess your undying love for me, I'm going to crash this car and I'm going to kill myself. She's in the car. What's going to happen to her? And y'all want to let this man have the opportunity to have a successful career? Because now he's like, oh, if Mia Goth never answered the phone when I called her when I was doing therapy, the reason no one answered the phone is because half of them probably are still physically healing from the things you did to them. Yo, daddy doesn't like you because you lied on this man. Oh yeah, he lied about the abuse that he faced at the hands of his father. Imagine how this affects other abuse victims wanting to bring their story forth and wanting to be believed. Again, that's why I reflect back on the plagiarism, because he has a thing with lying to get what he wants with movies. I don't know what to say, except that this is disgusting. And I'm flabbergasted. I'm flabbergasted people would still flock to this man to put him in a movie. Like, people don't still work with Mark Wahlberg, Chris Brown, and Sean Penn. I gotta look it up, but fucking Roman Polanski, Kevin Spacey, Harvey Weinstein, Cosby, like all these people. It's overwhelming how frustrating it is to hear that a woman had to deal with that. And as she's coming forth, the person who was her abuser is going to look at the public and say, you know, the first couple of days when she went public with the abuse that I did to her, I was sad. I thought about taking my own life. How do you think the people that you abused felt? I'm at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for words, and I think all we can do is actions. And those actions need to be holding him accountable. There's no reason that this should be allowed. And it's disgusting. I think you can kind of see I'm shaking a little bit, and the reason I'm making this again isn't just to be like one voice on the internet. It's to at least let somebody know. You see him in the street, you see him on a bar, dip out. He's not someone to be dating. He's not someone to be like, oh yeah, we should coddle him and we should welcome him back. No, he did fucked up things numerous times over, and these are just the things that are recorded. Like, you need to understand that. And I can't stress that any more than I already have. Again, he's not taking responsibility for his actions. Sounds like he's really good friends with his lawyer. Even though he did not take responsibility the first time when the allegations came out, he said basically the accountability thing, and he acknowledged that people were talking about him and about the stuff that he had done. And the thing with it is that if it wasn't true, not only do I think she wouldn't put the case forth, but he could have sued her for libel and slander, because of course that would hurt his career. But he didn't, because it's true. You see what I'm saying? But now he's like gonna fight it, and he's been on his rebrand. And again, he's never taken accountability. He's never taken accountability. And he's not going to start now unless someone outside of himself forces him to. And that might be FKA Twigs. Talila. Can't say it correctly, and I do apologize. It's heartbreaking. It's frustrating. And I think it needs to be respected as it should be. And it should be brought up just the same way we bring up Chris Brown. It should be brought up that this man has a fucking rap sheet. Again, assault with a deadly weapon, headbutting his girlfriend, threatening to kill his girlfriend, threatening to kill himself while he's inside the car with his girlfriend, shooting at stray dogs, telling people you're going to hell after spitting on other people like them, and then saying these crude remarks to get what? A rise out of them. He's a danger on the streets. I don't really have a place to end, because there's not a place to end, because it's not in my hands. He should go to jail for what the fuck he did. That's point blank. Skip the rehab. He had the opportunity to go to rehab, I believe 3 or 4 times again. He leaves rehab. He says, you know, I don't want to do this anymore, and dips out. So stop giving him the opportunity. Sit him down and make him accountable. And at bare minimum, make him uncomfortable enough to think, should I the next time hurt the person I love? Or I say I love, because abuse is not love. Or is it worth it if I decide to fight this random person in the street? Or pull a knife on my neighbor? The man is a menace. And that is the end. I don't know if I'm going to do any more deep dives, but I did feel very passionate about this. If you want to subscribe, I would appreciate it. Bye.